Worse yet, in the deadly heat, anything could happen. This was Harlem. It was August. Life was tough, and a cop had been murdered. And in the ambulance, as it sped downtown, Henrietta Washington clung to her child's hand and watched in silent terror as the paramedics fought for her life. But for the moment, it didn't look like they were winning. The little girl was gray and still, and her blood was everywhere. The floor, the sheets, her arms, the gurney, her mother's face and dress and hands. It looked like a slaughter. And for what? She was another casualty in the endless war between the cops and the bad guys, gang members, drug dealers, and narcs. She was a pawn in a game she knew nothing about, a tiny sacrifice among warriors whose goal was to destroy each other. Danielle Washington meant nothing to them, only to her friends and neighbors, her sisters, and her mother. She was the oldest of 4 children her mother had had between 16 and 20. But no matter how poor they were, nor how tough life was for them, or the neighborhood in which they fought to survive, her mother loved her. "Is she gonna die?" Henrietta asked in a strangled voice, her huge eyes looking into those of a paramedic, and he didn't answer. He didn't know. "We're doing what we can, ma'am." Henrietta Washington was 21 years old. She was a stereotype, a number, a statistic. But she was so much more than that. She was a woman, a girl, a mother. She wanted more than this for her kids. She wanted a job, wanted to work, wanted to be married to a good man one day, who loved and took care of her and her children. But she had never met a man like that. Her kids were all she had for the moment, and she had nothing to give them but her love. She had a boyfriend who took her to dinner once in a while, with 3 kids of his own to support. He hadn't been able to find a job in 6 months and drank too much when he took her out. There were no easy solutions for either of them, just welfare, an odd job from time to time, and a hand-to-mouth existence. Neither of them had finished high school, and they lived in a war zone. And the life they led, and where they lived it, was a death sentence for their children. The ambulance screeched to a stop outside the hospital, and the paramedics raced out with Daniela on the gurney. She had an IV in her arm, an oxygen mask over her face, and all Henrietta knew was that she was still breathing, but barely. She ran into the emergency room after her, in her blood-stained dress, and she couldn't even get near her little girl. A dozen nurses and residents had closed around the child and were running down the hall with her to the trauma unit, as Henrietta followed, wanting to ask someone what was happening, what they were going to do. She wanted to know if Daniela would be all right. 1,000 questions raced through her head as someone stuck a clipboard and pen in front of her face. "Sign this," the nurse said bluntly. "What is it?" Henrietta looked panicked. "We have to operate. Fast. Sign it." Henrietta did as she was told, and a second later she was standing alone in the hallway, watching other gurneys rush past, and nurses and doctors in hospital scrubs hurry toward operating rooms and other patients. She felt completely lost and terrified as she stood there and began to sob in total panic. And a nurse in green hospital pajamas came toward her and put an arm around her. She led her to a little cluster of chairs, sat her down, and crouched beside her to reassure her in a gentle voice. "They're going to do everything they can for your daughter." But the nurse had already heard that the child was in very critical condition and not likely to survive. "What are they going to do to her?" "They're going to try and repair the wound and stop the bleeding. She lost a lot of blood before she got here." It was a massive understatement. Just looking at the condition the child's mother was in, they both knew how dire the situation was. Henrietta was covered with blood. "They shot her. They just shot her." She didn't even know if it was the police or the men they'd been chasing who had done it. It didn't matter now. If Daniela died, what did it matter who had killed her, good guys or bad? As the 2 women held hands and Henrietta cried quietly with a look of despair, the nurse could hear the PA system paging Dr. Stephen Whitman. He was second in command in the trauma unit and one of the best men in trauma in New York, and she said as much to Henrietta. "If anyone can save her, he will. He's the best there is. You're lucky he's..."